Hello there, namaste. So this is going to be part 2 of the untold story of idol worship. Honestly, I was completely confused on what it was going to be about when I first started it, because it was just like I saw a few minutes of, or not the few minutes, I skipped in to see if the sound was working, and then I saw, I'm like, this might be a little iffy, and then it starts and I'm like, oh, okay, at least he's being respectful towards everything. And it's like, okay, I like it, and then he just gets more in depth and more in depth, and I'm like, oh, God, I really need to start thinking more on things. It's funny when you watch something and you go like, I don't spend enough time actually thinking about this kind of stuff. I probably should, because it's so fascinating. So fascinating. I mean, like, things were found out years ago. Things like this because it's historically accurate, that things were known to the world before, again, I put in quotations, the West discovered things, because it's written down in places and it's known in advance, but only the West is given the credit for it, because, well, they were the ones to make it known to the world, because they refused to accept it from anywhere else. And I'm including that part in just because it's like, but yeah, this is going to be part two, and it's going to be the philosophy on idol worship. And this is going to be, I think, the heftiest part, probably the bigger pill to swallow. We'll see.
That brings us to the third and last chapter, the Bharatiya philosophy on idol worship. Now let us try to take the same 5-step evolution towards devotion to the next level. If sun is the prime cause for my existence and I worship sun, that perfectly fits in the logic. Then what is the reason for existence of sun itself? Because it's a chain reaction. Because of something, sun exists, and because of sun, I exist. So the sense of devotion goes up high into the chain, up until the primordial cause for the existence of this nature and cosmos. And in Bharatiya context, or in the Bharatiya philosophy, that primordial cause is revered as Brahman. In Bharatiya philosophy, Brahman holds the highest spiritual position and is the epitome of nature, cosmos, and everything in it. The essence of Bharatiya philosophy is all about discovering, understanding, experiencing, and finally dissolving in Brahman. And as a quick side note, the moment you hear this word Brahman, a lot of negative connotations will definitely kick in. Unfortunately, many people...
I guess the good thing is I don't know anything about Brahman, so I have no negative connotations to go with it. I'm just curious to find out what's what, because he's talking about the primordial cause. But then again, you think about what he said before. I mean, a lot of people believed that the sun was what they believed. It was it, just like nature itself is what they believe. Like Mother Nature is a being in and of itself, just like the sun is a being in and of itself. If you believe that there was something behind it all, that's where it gets more into it. I think that's what he's getting on about. It's like the thing behind it. Whether you're worshiping nature, whether you're worshiping the stars, whether you're worshiping the sun, which is basically a star, whether you're worshiping animals, you go beyond it to find out what is the reason for it.
Denigrated it and abused it from both sides of the table. All that might be for another day. But for today, let's continue understanding Brahman. The essence of all the 4 Vedas and the tons of many other scriptures is all about understanding Brahman. So let's pick up one relatively simpler scripture called Kena Upanishad. Kena Upanishad ascribes to Samavedam, and the word Kena means question. Kena Upanishad is all about a dialectical conversation between a guru and a Sishya. Sishya asks the guru, what is the cause for the existence of this nature and cosmos? Where it all started. Pretty interesting and deep conversation. And this is how it goes. Sishya asks his guru, what is the cause for mind to think? What is the cause for life to thrive? What is the cause for people's ability to speak? How does intelligence command the eye and the ear to function the way they are? So basically the essence of the question is, what is that one primordial cause for this entire nature to function the way it is? The guru replies, the answer to your question, the primordial cause for our existence, that cause cannot be seen by a human eye. The speech cannot describe it. The mind cannot understand it. We don't know how to instruct anyone about it. It is distinct from the known and above unknown. That primordial cause is revered as Brahman. And the Guru continues, what one cannot think with mind, but by which the mind is made to think. What speech does not enlighten, but what enlightens speech. What cannot be seen by the human eye, but by which the eyes are being able to see. That cause is called as Brahman. If we try to articulate this in simpler terms,
Yeah.
this entire universe and everything in it is a complex.
Yeah, it's a complex living organism. I mean, what human beings are the cancer on it, but still, it's like a complex living organism that's created by something. So it's literally saying that there is something behind it all. Whether you worship it, there is a creator to it. There is something behind it all. There is something from the beginning. Yeah, because it's like our eyes work because they're meant to work. The fact that just happened off of it's just that it's astronomically by chance. It's just almost next to impossible. Not impossible, of course, but it's such a small minuscule number that it almost basically is.
Web of cause and effect. Now, for every effect, there will be a cause. And if one tries to continuously question backwards to trace the cause for every effect, then finally the answer or the final cause would be Brahman. And if all this sounds very complicated and complex and difficult to understand,
Not
clumsy
really.
and whatnot, then you are not alone.
Yeah, well, I guess because I'm trying to see it from my perspective. Maybe I'm just trying to grasp at straws and see like, oh, okay, this is what it's going for.
Krishna in Bhagavad Gita himself says that this aspect of understanding Brahman for normal people like you and me is extremely difficult. And this is what he says. Kleshodikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhir avapyate. The translation is,
I love it when he actually reads the original verse. I wish he does that for every single one because the way it sounds just sounds like it just sounds so much nicer. And then it's translated and I'm like, okay, I at least I understand the second part, but the first part just sounds better.
for the human beings with materialistic perspective, understanding and worshipping the Brahman in an unmanifested form is very difficult. And such kind of a worship of Brahman in unmanifested form is called as Nirakaropasana, which is very difficult. That is the reason why Brahman is understood and worshipped in two different forms. One is Sakara and the other one is Nirakara. Sakaropasana is where we have the Murti Puja or the idol worship, which is loosely translated into English.
Okay. So it's a way of making it easier to wrap your mind and understand it. Because honestly, if you because if you go back to the previous thing, it does make no sense unless you grew up with that mindset, like I did. It makes perfect sense. That all just sums up like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense to me. But if you grew up, and the funny thing is, if you actually put a logical mind to it, it's more confusing. And I like to think I'm logical, but when it comes to like belief, when it comes to religion, a lot of it, like that's why they always use the word faith. You go on faith. And that's the thing. It's like, so the rest is like creating manifested. So that's why there's idol worship. That's why there's that. I mean, you think about it, like there are always symbols to beliefs, but in some beliefs, like the ones he said, the Judaic beliefs, the Abrahamic beliefs that all have spawned from that. They normally don't, but that doesn't change the fact that a lot of people still do, like the crosses that people will pray to, or Mother Mary, or the Jesus Christ on the cross, or Joseph Smith. There's all this stuff that goes into it. Yeah, so people do need some kind of symbol to latch onto. They absolutely do. So I'm kind of seeing why the idol worship is there now, because it's like, oh, they need they need a direct, not a direct line, but they need something to see to get their mind in that mindset. Probably, at least that's what I'm gathering from all this.
And this aspect of idol worship originated with the cause to understand Brahman. In Nirakaropasana, these idols or the murtis or the puja, all these rituals will not be there. It's totally a different kind of practice. Now comes the reason why I chose to make a doc film on this subject. Now, the people who are motivated to have this religious conversion business, they're trying to twist and tweak this Nirakaropasana into a fact that See, Sanatana Dharma itself does not promote idol worship or Murti Puja, and it is very offensive. They're trying to push their point, their agenda, their business of conversions by misleading people and misquoting the scriptures of Sanatana Dharma and to pull people into their religious business, whatever it is. Fact of the matter is, Sakara Upasana is meant for everybody, and this is where you have the physical manifestations of the divine entities. And Nirakara Upasana is relatively very difficult process of understanding Brahman. And in the practice of Nirakara Upasana, there are no murtis or idols or any physical manifestations of Brahman. One proper...
Yeah, that's the thing. 'Cause I grew up, I guess, in the mindset of the Brahman. That kind of mindset, when you grow up with it, you're constantly taught it. It's easier to understand it and get your mind around it because, heck, if you grow up in it as a little kid, it's just like, oh, that makes sense. Getting into it as an adult, it'd be like, okay, I don't get it, but it sounds nice.
Propagating his or her own religion is nothing wrong. It's completely constitutional, legal, moral, ethical, and whatnot. But the problem starts when one starts to denigrate another religion with a malicious intention to pull people towards one's own religion. And we have ample of such religious salespeople all around us. And they try to twist and tweak, saying that the idol worship is not even mentioned in Vedas also. God knows if they even know the spelling of the Vedas.
I gotta say, I like him. In the beginning, he's just like, oh, I'm trying to be respectful to everyone's belief, but he hates ignorance. He absolutely hates ignorance. He's degrading ignorance and disliking people because they're ignorant. I mean, and I'm okay with that. That is where I'm like, okay, me and him could be friends. We'd probably see different things completely differently. But as long as you have a stance on things and you have your own perspective, like destroying other people's, and I'm pretty sure everyone falls for it. I know I do it too, where I say things because I don't think anything of it, because to me it just sounds like normal. And then I hear that, oh, that's being disrespectful. I'm like, how? It just, I'm not used to it. But yeah. I like how he's like that. Oh, ignorance. Oh, we dislike ignorance. Oh, we're respectful of everyone's belief unless you're ignorant. Like, yeah.
But they still try to twist and tweak our scriptures with a malicious intention to push their religious agenda. Yajurvedam, Adharvana Vedam, Agama Shastram, Shilpa Shastram, all these scriptures and many more very clearly articulate what kind of Murti Puja should be done. What should be the structure and shape and form of all these murtis or idols. I'm not even getting into the spiritual aspects of it. Prana Pratishta. This itself is an incredibly deep subject when it comes to Murti Puja. To keep things simple so that all of us can understand, I'm refraining from all that. But the point is, there are many scriptures which foundationally explain how idol worship should be done and for what reason and purpose in Sanatana Dharma. So don't get misled by such kind of religious salespeople. Use your common sense, logical thinking ability, and if you haven't...
No. Never use logical thinking when it comes to a belief kind of argument. Logical thinking, no matter if you're incredibly logical, always goes out the window. It's basically emotions take over. You want to avoid those kind of discussions if possible. You want to avoid them. And like, I'll read comments and I'm just like, I'm going to avoid that because they don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what they're talking about. And it's just going to cause issues. It's always best to just avoid some things. Because he's like, oh, use logic. I'm like, When it comes to people's beliefs, don't use logic. Don't try, because that's the problem. You try to use logic and then people will think you're being rude or denigrating them, because in the end, it just, you're using your own perspective, your own understanding to try to use logic to bring down their perspective, their understanding. It's best to just listen and learn. Never try to coach or teach or degrade. Yeah, but when it comes to belief, you want to believe in logic, but that kind of does go out the window.
Read the scriptures and then form an informed opinion for yourself.
Read the scriptures. Yep.
Before closing this documentary, let me quote a very interesting example. What you're seeing here is a Shivalingam from a temple called as Gudimallam in Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh. Here the Shivalingam is carved mostly with the features of Shiva as explained in Sri Rudram as part of Yajurvedam. This temple is under the control of Archaeological Survey of India, and this Shivalingam is the oldest datable Shivalingam across India. Mind the word, datable. There are two.
Yep, mind the word. Because how accurate can you get with dates? If it's written down, then they probably have a complete understanding of the date of it. If people are testing the stone, you'll never get an accurate date.
Two reasons why I'm bringing this example of the Shivalingam. Number one, do not get misled by the false narratives that idol worship or Murti Puja is not mentioned in Vedas, which is being maliciously propagated by these religious salespeople. This Shivalingam is more than 2300 years old, and it physically depicts the features of Shiva as per Yajurvedam. Reason number two, this Shivalingam challenges our very understanding of the word Brahmana. As I said, this word is denigrated and abused by both sides of the table. But if you observe, in this manifestation, Shiva does not have a Yajnopavitam or Janyu, which is revered as a sacred thread across the body, and you absolutely cannot find any divine entity, a divine masculine entity, without Yajnopavitam in across Sanatana Dharma. Probably this is the only Shivalingam which does not have a Yajnopavitam, but still carved according to the features of Yajurvedam. This Shivalingam and the temple fundamentally challenges our very understanding of both the spiritual and the social aspects that we have been taught. So the bottom line is very simple. Don't go by the narratives. Apply your logic, reason, thinking ability and all that stuff for which we are all blessed with, and then make your informed opinions.
Which we're all blessed with. Not everyone was blessed equally with logic and reason. That's one of the things that's one of the real sad parts when it comes to like belief, I gotta say, and people's perspective, even like relationships and things like that, because a lot of logic goes out the window when it comes to those kinds of things, and it becomes difficult. You could do the same thing with politics, really. And it goes out the window because people will fall back on emotion and things like that. And when people start talking about emotions, the argument, the discussion is over, because there's no point in talking to someone who's using emotion to try to back their understanding. Maybe they could have used logic at one point, but when they're emotionally triggered, it becomes a bigger issue. That's why it's always best. You would wish you could have open conversations with people, but it's difficult. It really is. One of the best things to do is to listen, learn, and learn for yourself, because I love listening to this. And then it's funny because I'll watch things and my fiance will be correcting some of the things that are said, or be like, well, this is this. And I'm like, that's actually more fascinating when you say it like that. It makes a little more sense, because I'm lost halfway through, because he's using words here that make I don't know what a shimmerlingam is. I have or a lingam. I have no clue what that is. I have no clue. I'm guessing that is idol. I'm assuming that's what it means. But it's just like, there are so many things. And he said that several times right here. But it's like, he keeps saying logic. He keeps saying that, like being logical, think. He is pointing out to like read, to learn for yourself. But you can't have a discussion. It becomes very difficult. Very difficult. People have to be in a specific mindset to talk with them. They have to. Because other than that, they just get triggered.
On be it idol worship or this left liberal lingo called Brahminical patriarchy and whatnot.
See, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that left lingo, whatever. I have no clue what that means. But that's the thing. I guess I'm not meant to. I have my own perspectives. I have my own understanding. I have my own beliefs. But it is fascinating to learn.
So that's a quick outlook on the idol worship, the historical context, the contentions, the philosophy, and everything about it in a nutshell. In my last couple of years of research, if I really have to summarize what I understood and learned in one line in this context of worshipping, here it is. While in most parts of the world, people were fighting and killing each other for this question on who is God, in Bharat, there were discussions and discourses on what is God. If you don't know what is God, then how can you ever say who is God? And here is a very interesting thing. In Bharat, as part of these discussions and debates, and out of this very conducive spiritual atmosphere, there emerged ideologies where you don't even need God. There is no need for God. Such kind of ideologies also thrived out of Bharat. Vandalizing temples and idols in the name of religion only shows, or rather highlights, the incapabilities and insecurities of those ideologies. The pluralistic, inclusive, conducive, and spiritual culture and heritage of Bharat should always be preserved for the betterment of humanity. And on those lines,
Agreed.
here are my 2 cents. And as always, thanks for watching.
Oof. Okay. Yeah. I like that. Because it's because he's trying to be as respectful as possible, basically saying try not to denigrate, try to understand, try to learn. At least that's how I was seeing it. He was using words that I have no concept with. Like, I now know what Brahman means, because it's like, oh, that makes perfect sense to me. That makes absolutely perfect sense. And then he goes on to show the offshoots of that. It was like to the idol worship, and then like the nature type of worship. And I'm like, oh, okay. It makes it easier when you could see something, when there's something there. At least that's how I gathered it, because it's like you walk into religious buildings and you always see like religious connotations or religious iconography. Is that the word? Even if people aren't praying to it or things like that. Well, people pray to it, but yeah, even if people aren't, there's still that stuff there. I mean, if you walk into a building that has none, you would no longer know what you're walking into. It just seems like a normal building. But yeah, I gotta say, I really did like it. I really found it very interesting, because it was just like when he was using the sun, like in the last part. It was like that it just incredibly interesting. Sure, I probably missed an absolute ton. But it was nice to hear, and the fact that he's trying to be respectful of everyone, and then he's like, oh, but ignorance we hate. Ignorance we don't like. People who are ignorant and unaccepting of others. That is where we draw the line. That is the issue. And it's like, yeah, I would like to hear more of that. Instead of, I'm probably got a ton of hate comments on this one, I'm pretty sure, just because, which is funny, I'm watching a video about being accepting and like learning from one another, and I'm pretty sure I've got a ton of comments that are rude already. I probably need to go to the last video and read the comments just to see how many there are. But yeah, I liked it. I like him. He's very, very well learned, I guess. He's spent time actually diving in, and he's taken some time to obviously dabble in some others instead of, well, there's so much in this, so much that he probably never have time to fully immerse himself in any others. But the fact that he understands, he has an understanding of them, and it's like, okay, so he can form and try to simulate a discussion around that kind of stuff. And I like that. He tries to keep a logical head on himself until it comes to like people who are ignorant and unaccepting of others. And I'm okay with that. I allow him that flaw because that's a good flaw to have. You stand your ground right there. You stand your ground. Thank you all for watching. Yeah, I found this absolutely interesting. It kind of actually did explain a lot to me, because I was always confused by that. I was always confused. And then he does, oh, it's just hard to understand. And here's this, and then here's the, and I was like, oh, okay. At least that's from his perspective, how he understands it. Sure, I'm pretty sure there are tons of other people who see things differently, but I like this. I like how he breaks things down. I like how he talks about things. Thank you all for watching. This has been the untold story of idol worship in Bharat. Definitely an interesting watch. Definitely an interesting learn too, I should say. Unless someone comments and says, "Oh, this is all false," which tends to happen quite a bit. You shouldn't learn from this. You should watch this over here. This is the truth of it. You focus on this. Always take all perspectives. Never just assume one. Take all perspectives, but don't say one thing is absolute. It becomes combative. And that's what he was trying to discuss. Don't get combative. Just try to listen, understand, learn for yourself. And everyone can learn from that. Thank you all for watching. Talk to you next time. Toodles.